Do you believe that just 30 minutes of turning your back could bring your whole life crashing down? A 3-year-old girl, peacefully sleeping in a holiday apartment with her family. Outside, her parents were having dinner, just a few dozen steps away. No sounds, no screams, no one saw anything. And then, she vanished, without a trace. The police found no culprit. No camera recorded anything. No witness saw a stranger. Nearly 2 decades later, the name Madeleine McCann remains a haunting mystery, not just in the UK, but across the world. This wasn't just a disappearance. It was a labyrinth of rumors, mistakes, theories, and lies. Today, we revisit the case that forever changed how the world thinks about a child's safety, even in the very room that's supposed to be the safest place of all. The McCanns were an ordinary middle-class British family. They weren't rich, they weren't famous, but they had everything people wish for: a peaceful little home, stable jobs, and 3 beautiful children. Gerry McCann, the father, was a cardiologist. He dealt with life and death every day, but never imagined tragedy would find him. Kate, the mother, was a general practitioner. Both were intelligent, educated, and deeply devoted to their family. Their eldest daughter, Madeleine Beth McCann, was born on May 12, 2003. She had striking blue eyes, golden hair, and a gentle smile that made everyone love her. But what made Madeleine truly unique was a rare identifying feature: a black fleck in her right eye, like a tiny lightning bolt in the pupil, an extremely rare mark. In late April 2007, the McCanns decided on a short holiday to Portugal, a land of golden sun, blue seas, and child-friendly resorts. They traveled with 7 friends, mostly fellow medical professionals, and their young children. In total, 9 adults and 8 kids. Their destination was Praia da Luz, a small resort town in the Algarve. They chose the Ocean Club, a seaside villa complex known for being clean, quiet, and secure, popular with British families. The McCanns stayed in apartment 5A on the ground floor. It was just a few dozen meters from the pool and directly behind the tapas restaurant where the adults dined each night. In the early days of the holiday, everything went smoothly. In the mornings, the group took their children to the beach. In the afternoons, the kids were cared for in the resort's play area while the adults relaxed. At night, the parents ate dinner at the tapas restaurant, taking turns to check on their sleeping children. They called it a rotating check-in system, a way to balance relaxation and parental duty. They believed the children were safe. The apartment door was left unlocked, yes, because they thought it was a safe resort. Praia da Luz was known as Britain's retirement village in Portugal, but in that illusion of safety, the unthinkable happened. One small lapse sparked a question the world would ask for decades. Where did Madeleine McCann go? The moment of disappearance and the search. On the night of May 3, 2007, the weather was calm. Gentle waves lapped the shore. Tourist families began gathering for dinner. As usual, the McCann group dined at the tapas restaurant, just 55 meters from their apartment, though without a direct line of sight to the door. Gerry and Kate put their 3 children to bed around 7:30 p.m. Madeleine was wearing pink pajamas with a white cat print. The twins, Sean and Amelie, were lying next to her in separate beds. Everything was peaceful. Gerry locked the back patio door with the interior latch, but the main door was left unlocked. They wanted to be able to go in and out easily during checks. 9:05 p.m., Gerry was the first to return to check on the children. Everything seemed normal. Madeleine was asleep, and the twins weren't stirring. He gently closed the door and returned to the restaurant. 9:30 p.m., Matt Oldfield, a friend from the group, volunteered to do the next check. He didn't turn on the lights. He just stood at the doorway and listened. Hearing the steady breathing of the children, he returned and said, "Everything's fine." But the truth is, he never actually saw Madeleine. 10 p.m., it was Kate's turn. She stood in front of the bedroom door and felt something was off. The door wasn't slightly ajar like usual, it was wide open. Wind was blowing in from the window, making the curtains flutter. She stepped inside, and a chill ran down her spine. Madeleine's bed was empty. Kate ran outside, screaming at the top of her lungs. "They've taken her, they've taken Madeleine." Gerry and the rest of the group rushed back. The entire resort was thrown into chaos. Hotel staff, tourists, and neighbors all joined the search. They checked every bush, every empty room, every corridor. One woman ran to the beach. Another climbed up toward the nearby forest. Everyone clung to a single hope, that Madeleine was just hiding somewhere, playing a game. But time passed, and nothing was found. In the midst of the panic, a detail emerged later. One of the McCann's friends reported seeing a man between 9:15 and 9:30 p.m. walking quickly down the road near the apartments. He was carrying a small girl, dressed in light-colored pajamas. The child was limp, her head resting on his shoulder, appearing unconscious. But at the time, no one thought anything of it. No one realized. It might have been the last time anyone saw Madeleine McCann alive. 11 p.m., Portuguese police were called. But delays, confusion, and a lack of professionalism during the initial response would become irreversible mistakes. The scene was compromised. No one secured the apartment. Dozens of people had entered, touched belongings, even helped make the bed. If the abductor had left behind any evidence, it was now gone. And from that moment on, the disappearance of a 3-year-old girl in Portugal officially became one of the most famous unsolved cases of the modern world. The initial investigation and the rising suspicion. That very night, local police arrived at the scene. But instead of launching a thorough and professional investigation, they encountered what the British press would later call one of the most amateurish responses in the history of Portuguese policing. The crime scene was never secured. No forensic team was immediately dispatched to collect evidence. There was no review of surveillance footage because no cameras had ever been installed at the main walkways around the resort. A witness claimed to have seen a suspicious man carrying a little girl. But the police didn't issue a wider alert that night. They assumed Madeleine might have wandered off on her own. The golden first hour was lost. The next day, dozens of police officers were deployed. Sniffer dogs were brought in. Following the scent, one of the dogs led officers to a door. But it wasn't an exit. It led back into apartment 5A, the place where Madeleine had supposedly disappeared. Less than a week later, the press began to raise a question. Was something not quite right? In the parents' own account? Why was the window in the bedroom open? Why wasn't the main door locked, even though anyone could enter the resort freely? Why did the group of friends, dubbed the Top of Seven, give conflicting and overlapping accounts of their checks? A theory began to spread. Not from the internet, but from the Portuguese police themselves. Madeleine had died inside the apartment, and her parents had covered it up. In July 2007, 2 specially trained sniffer dogs were flown in from the UK, one trained to detect blood, the other to detect human remains. Shockingly, they responded to the curtain, behind the sofa, and even a pair of Kate McCann's trousers. The trunk of a rental car used by the McCanns, a vehicle they didn't hire until 23 days after Madeleine disappeared. DNA testing in the UK confirmed the presence of blood traces in the car, but the sample was too degraded to conclusively identify it as Madeleine's. In September 2007, Portuguese police officially declared Jerry and Kate McCann as suspects, accusing them of accidental death, followed by disposal of the body. The world was stunned. How could a respectable couple of doctors, devoted parents who appeared to love their daughter, be involved in her death? But just as the Portuguese media turned suspicious, the British media took the opposite stance. They rallied behind the McCanns, criticizing the Portuguese police as incompetent and lacking evidence. Major outlets like the Daily Mail, The Sun, and the BBC reported the story from the angle that the McCanns were victims. Meanwhile, internet users began dissecting every detail. Kate's odd calmness in press conferences, Jerry's expressions during interviews. They asked, why no tears? Why do they sound so scripted? Are they hiding something? Yet amidst all the suspicions, one fact remained unchanged. No body, no witness, no conclusive physical evidence. Madeleine was still missing, and the last people known to have seen her alive were still her own parents. A case lost in suspicion, and a German suspect emerges after 13 years. After years of intense investigation, the disappearance of Madeleine McCann seemed destined to fade into obscurity. However, in 2020, a shocking development brought the world's attention back to the case. A new suspect emerged, Christian Bruckner, a German man with a criminal history that included child sexual abuse and other offenses. Bruckner had lived near the Praia da Luz resort at the time Madeleine went missing, and notably, he had previously been detained by German police on suspicions related to crimes against children. During the investigation, German authorities discovered that Bruckner may have been near the resort on the night of Madeleine's disappearance. However, due to international borders and slow interagency cooperation, he was not identified as a suspect earlier. More notably, investigators found Bruckner's DNA at the scene of another child-related case in Portugal. Despite this indirect evidence, there was still no definitive proof linking Bruckner directly to Madeleine's disappearance. Global media exploded with the news of the new suspect. Public debates reignited, and many held on to hope that the case might finally be solved. Yet others remained skeptical about the reliability of the evidence, fearing the case might once again dissolve into a maze of mystery and controversy. The McCann family continued to speak publicly, expressing their willingness to cooperate with police while firmly denying all baseless accusations against them. And the central question remained unanswered. Where is Madeleine McCann, the gentle little girl with the soft blue eyes? And will the truth ever be found? After more than a decade of waiting? Other theories in the case. 1. Abduction for human trafficking. One of the most widely discussed theories among experts and international media is that Madeleine was kidnapped by a human trafficking ring. Praia da Luz, located in the Algarve region, is a well-known tourist area and has long been rumored to be active with trafficking networks. However, after years of investigation, police have not found any concrete evidence showing that Madeleine was taken out of Portugal for trafficking. The absence of leads, sightings, or any trace makes this theory compelling but ultimately unsubstantiated. 2. Madeleine wandered off on her own. Some believe that Madeleine might have left the apartment on her own and gotten lost somewhere around the resort or its surroundings. This was one of the initial theories proposed by Portuguese police. However, given that she was only 3 years old, it is highly unlikely that she could have gone far without being noticed in a busy holiday resort. Moreover, no belongings or physical traces of her were ever found in nearby areas. 3. Death by accident inside the apartment. A controversial theory suggests that Madeleine may have died in an accidental incident inside the apartment, and that her parents tried to hide the truth to avoid legal consequences. Unusual behavior by the parents during press conferences and the detection of blood traces by sniffer dogs have fueled this theory. However, police have never found a body or forensic evidence to support or confirm this possibility. 4. Abduction by a lone offender or stranger. It's possible that Madeleine was abducted by a stranger with no connection to the family or their friends, potentially a lone offender with criminal tendencies toward children. Christian Bruckner is often cited as a prime example of such a suspect. Still, proving a direct link between any suspect and Madeleine has been incredibly difficult, leaving this theory filled with unanswered questions. 5. Staged disappearance or conspiracy. Some of the more extreme theories suggest that the disappearance might have been staged, potentially as part of a more complex conspiracy involving organized crime or the concealment of a secret. These theories are usually based on the lack of transparency during the early investigation, inconsistencies in testimonies, and peculiar behaviors by key figures. However, such theories are generally unsupported by verifiable evidence and are largely regarded as speculation. The Madeleine McCann case still holds many unanswered questions. Each theory has its own strengths and weaknesses, and none has been conclusively proven. The one thing that is certain is this: the whole world is still waiting for the truth, hoping that one day Madeleine will be found or that the case will finally be solved. 17 years have passed. Madeleine McCann, the 3-year-old girl who disappeared one quiet night in Portugal, has never returned. No farewell, no trace. No one knows what really happened behind the door of apartment 5A that night. Perhaps she was kidnapped. Perhaps she got lost. Or maybe the truth lies somewhere very close, but we missed it. The Madeleine McCann case is not just an unsolved mystery. It is a painful lesson about investigative mistakes, the power of the media, and above all, the endless pain of parents. Whatever the truth may be, Madeleine deserves to be known, and the truth deserves to be revealed. If this story leaves you unsettled, there are many other heartbreaking and chilling cases waiting for you to explore. Here at File X, we will continue to tell real mysteries with respect, neutrality, and sharp insight. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any cases. And if you have a case you want us to cover, leave it in the comments. Maybe you will be the one to unlock the key to the next case. See you in the next episode, where another case is about to be opened. And you are the companion on the journey to find the truth.